Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Kickstarter podcast. So, always say this, but we have a very interesting guest today, a good friend of mine, Dave Thomson. As always, I shall let the guest introduce themselves and give us their elevator pitch. So, Dave, welcome. Do you want to tell people who you are and a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Dave Thomson. I run a business called Suada.com. Suada is the Roman goddess of persuasion, so Suada. And it's an education technology platform where you can learn to be more persuasive, more influential. My background is I've spent the last 30 years in sales, started out as a kid with a couple of alcoholic parents, as you could say, so we didn't have the best upbringing. Went into the army at 16, left the army at 21, became a soldier, and then it was into the world of financial services where I started studying and learning to be a mortgage advisor. I was the number one mortgage advisor in the whole of the UK, studied everything from pitching, framing, negotiating. Built a mortgage business, sold it, made a few million quid, worked with the world leading social psychologist Robert Cialdini. I was one of 6 in the world to teach the science of influence. And if you want to learn anything about sales, I can help you. So yeah, that's my
Love it.
elevator pitch.
Amazing. Fantastic. I do like how nonchalantly it was the build it, sold it, made a few million quid part as well, because I know that you are obviously super talented, done a lot of amazing stuff. So yeah, I think the giving you the task of telling everything in 60 seconds was probably quite a harsh intro question. But we're talking beforehand. I said the reason why I wanted to get you on is because I think that firstly that you've just got a lot of business knowledge to share. But I think there's certain things that copywriters, business owners struggle with that I think you've hesitate to use the cliched phrase crack the code on, but I think there's a lot that you can share with that. So something that I think would be good to delve into first would be the sales side of things, because I think now we say sales, and a lot of people think of it as a dirty word, or they crap their pants when they hear they've got to sell. So why do you think then that business owners and copywriters need to learn sales?
From my perspective, when we say the word sales, it's what's known as a nominalization, right? And nominalization is like energy or love or peace of mind. It's something you can't put in a wheelbarrow. So if I say to you sales, you're going, you don't quite know what it is. People don't define it. Years ago, there was a guy that was knocking about at the same time that Jesus was knocking about, and his name was Seneca. And Seneca was like one of the brightest people in the world. And Seneca said, a consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step towards salvation. You have to know what you're doing wrong before you can correct it. So when we talk about sales, we say, right, you have to learn sales. Most people haven't defined what sales is. And from my perspective, I can tell you as a dyslexic kid growing up with a couple of alcoholic parents, getting a job as a financial advisor, what I wanted to do was learn what sales was, like what it was. So what is pitching, framing, negotiating, neurolinguistic programming, influence. So sales is a series of micro little tiny pieces that if you learn how to do those pieces, you end up being massively competent. So you can have a conversation with a client and you just ask questions in a certain way, in a certain order, and people want to buy from you. And they want to buy from you at this level rather than this level. You know, there's nothing worse than going out and doing a sale for 500 quid, which should have been 2.5 grand. And then you've left most of what you want to do on the table. And if your goal is to earn 10, 12 grand a month, those 500 quids are really hard to find, but the 2.5 granders are not that hard to find. So learning how to ask the right questions, which we will call sales, is the key to you achieving massive success.
Like it. And you mentioned questions there. So, excuse me. What are the key questions people need to ask them? Because I think people hear that and they probably assume, oh, well, I need to ask about, what someone's pain points are and what I can do for them. But I know that you've got a process for doing this. So maybe outline that process and then talk to us about what questions do people need to ask to, firstly, just make sales, and secondly, make sales at a higher price.
So I'll tell you a little story. So years ago, I worked with a guy called Lazo Freeman, and he was what's known as the body transformation coach. He worked with a guy called Dan Priestley, did one of his courses, and he came up with this body transformation program. And what happened was he was getting a load of PTs who were spending 4 or 5 grand to go and spend 4 or 5 days with Lazo. And then he said, now Dave will come in and he'll teach you sales, right? Teach you what sales is. And so these people would come in, normally they'd be quite big bodybuilders, and they'd look at you like you better be good because we've just spent 4 or 5 grand with this guy. And I'm like, I'm doing this for nothing. And so I wanted to give them something straight away. So I chose something out of behavioral science from a guy that your listeners can take away. So there's a guy who used to work at one of the big universities, and it doesn't matter like who he was or what he did, but this was based in science, and it's based on the principle of consistency and commitment. And so let's imagine you're a client, right? And they've come to you and they're thinking about doing copywriting for some reason, right? You can ask them what I call the 6 killer question framework. And so the first question is, okay, you've not had really good copy in your business right now, right? And so you're thinking about doing something different. And then you ask the first question, which is, why might you change and start using amazing copy to convert people? Why might you change? So I'll ask you that question. We'll just run through this framework together. Why might you change?
So me as the business owner, why might I change?
Yeah, why might you change?
Let's say at the moment my sales are sporadic and my cash flow is unpredictable, and so I need certainty in my business and know how many sales I'm going to be bringing in each month.
Okay, great. So that's first question, right? You've done the talking there, so that's a great thing. Second question, right? And this is tapping into Robert Cialdini's principle of consistency and commitment. You're making commitments. You're telling me why you want to do it. Second question number 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm absolutely ready to do this, and 1 being I don't care if I never do this. How ready are you to change? Now, the key thing here, right, from my perspective, is I need to pad this so it's not too obvious. But so I say, look, just so I can like work out what my schedule needs to be if we want to work together. But scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm absolutely ready to do this. I want to get this going now. And 1 being I don't care if I never change from what I'm doing right now. How ready are you to do this? Pick a number between 1 and 10.
I'm going to go for a 7.
Okay. And so typically that's the case, right? It doesn't matter what number you say, right? My next question number 3 is always the same. Why didn't you choose a lower number?
I didn't choose a lower number because I see this as a priority right now. I know that it's something I've tried a lot of other things that haven't worked so well, and so copy seems like the next logical step.
Okay. Why else?
Because if I stay at the same level I'm at now, it doesn't give me the profits in my business to live the life I want to. It doesn't give me the revenue to hire more staff and to grow the business. And it means I stay trapped in the day-to-day delivery.
Okay. So who's doing the talking here? The client's doing the talking, right? So now we go to the next step. I'll say, now imagine you've changed, right? We've done this copy, we've done it, right? And it's absolutely worked. What would the positive outcomes be from your perspective? Just so I know where I'm at. And so that's question 4. Imagine you've changed, right? We've put this in. It's working amazingly, exactly how you'd thought it would work. What would the positive outcomes be from your perspective?
I would have time to do the things that I enjoy in the business and working on it, so I can go and do stuff more for fun rather than necessity. I'd have a bigger platform. I could go and maybe do some speaking gigs. I could spend more time networking, and I wouldn't have to worry that my launches and my email marketing might flop.
Okay, question 5. Why are those outcomes important to you specifically?
Because that was my dream when I started off as a business owner. I think at the moment I'm working in a business whereby it's perfectly fine, but it's not what I envisaged it as being. And I see other people who I think their businesses aren't as good as mine. Maybe they're not as, they don't work as hard as me, but they're having opportunities and doing stuff that I think I should be able to do.
Okay, so and what's the next step, if any?
As in...
Like from your perspective, you told me all those things. What do you see the next step is, if any, in terms of like getting you towards that objective and getting there? What do you see? What's the next step, if any?
I think I need an expert to come in and help with my marketing.
And guess what? They're sitting with one now and they're talking to you. So I did that with Lazo, with some of the guys. And next thing I got on my Facebook was Dave Thompson's a god. Oh my God, my clients are now coming to me. They're not even asking the prices. So that's from a guy called Mike Pantalon, and he worked at Princeton University. He worked in the ERU, and he wrote this book called Instant Influence. And so there's things that you can do like that where you get the other person talking and you're just using a question set and a framework. And so within sales, there's a whole set of competencies and things that when you learn them, it creates transformation. And it creates transformation in 2 places. The first place it creates it is within yourself as a salesperson. But the second thing is, if you're leading a business and you can say, look, when you come and work for me, I'm going to teach you how to do this job properly. So I'm going to teach you how to use consistency to close clients. I'm going to teach you how to open, how to close, how to frame, how to negotiate, what positive mental attitude is. And the way that you know if somebody's got it is they can teach you it back. So that's what we have. We created a technology solution whereby you teach somebody something like the transformational close, they get a video and they record themselves and they teach it back, and that creates such a difference.
Amazing. And I think for me, when I speak to new business owners, new copywriters, when they think about trying to sell to someone, they just think about pitching. And I guess that's only one part of it, because I've always gone into it probably more unconsciously gone into sales conversations, wanting to ask those questions to basically discover, can I help this person? And I think for me, that takes a lot of the pressure off, because you're thinking, I don't have to sell to them. I just have to find out, can I actually serve their problem, and can I give them what they want? So with that in mind, are there any other mistakes that you see people making with sales, or any misconceptions that crop up a lot?
Within sales, there's a dozen competencies that sit within sales. So the first thing that everybody that should do is when you start out and having a sales conversation, you have to start out with what's called a fact find, ideally, and that's a blank piece of paper and an open mind. And you're thinking, how can I help this person? But in order to do that, there's a competency that sits behind it, which is called a positive mental attitude. And a positive mental attitude has a definition, it has a set of rules, and it's the right mental attitude in any given set of circumstances, incorporating the plus traits of life. It means you have hope, you have faith, and you have integrity. And integrity is a set of standards you don't drop below, irrespective of circumstance. So when you have that right mental attitude and you go in and you think, I've got a blank piece of paper, I've got a positive mental attitude, then what happens is you then start asking questions. When you also start talking to a client, there's three big core motives. And those three core motives are establishing relationships. So how do I establish a relationship with this person? And there's a couple of influence principles that can help you do that. How do I overcome uncertainty? And how do I create motivation and action? They're your three big rocks to do. When you start working with a client and they're saying, Mike, I really like you. I think you're a really good copywriter, but I just need to go and speak to my friend, my brother, my sister, right? That uncertainty should trigger within you, if you've been trained in the right way from a sales perspective, of, okay, that's fine. Let me tell you about other people that I've helped like you. And when you show them that, you're giving them that uncertainty. And that's the principle of social proof. Or alternatively, this is why I'm an expert. Let me show you. This is me speaking on stage here. This is me helping Barack Obama get elected. This is me. And they go, okay, this guy really is an expert. But you reduce the uncertainty. What happens? People end up having conversations and they end up trying to pitch, but they've not established a relationship. They've not overcome uncertainty, and they don't know how to create motivation and action. And so there's a method and a system and a way of doing it, in the same way there is writing copy, and the same way there is fixing an engine, same there is programming a computer. And when people learn how to do it in the right way, ethically and effectively, they can walk into a conversation with the right mental attitude, with a blank piece of paper and an open mind, and just ask questions. And guess what? Those questions can be really good questions that are steeped in behavioural science, and it makes it significantly more likely that they get a yes, and they don't get a 500 quid yes, they get a $2,500 yes, if that's what's possible.
What would you do then if someone doesn't have social proof? So say they're starting out as a brand new business, or maybe they're a new copywriter who's currently working at a corporate gig. How would you get across that obstacle of, I like you, but I don't trust you yet?
I like you, don't trust you yet. What you can do is you can establish authority, right, as to why you're an expert, right? And so the principle of authority says when we're uncertain and we don't know what to do, we look outside of ourselves and we look to the voices, the opinions of experts that have two things: expertise and trustworthiness, right? So to establish yourself as an expert, what you can do is you can talk about a commentary on the market. Right, so commentary on the changes within copywriting. So you can say, once upon a time, anybody could be a copywriter. All you needed was a pen and a piece of paper, and you wrote in the local press. Every day people did that. But then one day, this thing called the internet happened. And then you start telling the story of the evolution of copywriting. And then you talk about AI then coming on board. And you say, and today, I'd like to tell you I'm the best copywriter in the world. And if you admit a weakness, I'm not. But what I do have access to is I have a team of experts around me, and you talk about the people you've got around you that have helped you, and also some of the tools that you use. And then you're way more likely to be trusted, because you can talk about the evolution of the category. And it's like, that's really interesting, because you know about the evolution of it, and anybody can learn how to do that.
Fantastic. I like it. And you mentioned the idea between like the difference between a £500 sale and a £2,500 sale. Is it just a case of doing that stuff better, or is there anything else that comes into play with that?
No, the key thing to it here is you need to build in. So the foundation of all sales, so the grandfather of all sales is a guy called Socrates, right? And Socrates is the daddy of every single sale, right? Socrates had a saying. He was 2,500 years ago. He was walking around Athens talking to people, and he realized, he was the smartest person in the world. What Socrates said was, he had this technique, and he said, if I ask a question or a series of questions to which a prospect will readily agree, and then I ask a concluding question based on those agreements, not yeses, agreements, I will get a desirable response. In order to do the bigger sale, what you need to do is build what's called a model, right? A model. And so I'll take you to something that I know something about, which is the world of financial services, right? And let's imagine a client's going to go and take out a mortgage with me. They're coming to me to buy a mortgage. The chances of them wanting to buy additional protection to protect their family, right, if I just have a conversation with them, are slim. Like, you might get 20 or 30% of people that will buy protection with a mortgage. However, they all need to buy it. Everybody needs to buy it. They need to buy protection for themselves and for their family, right? And especially in case they get sick, because they're just about to borrow 300 grand to buy a lovely house they want to buy. And then they think, oh no, I don't want to spend 40 quid on this illness policy because I'm probably not going to get sick. And the reason they don't do that is because they don't have a model in place, right? So let me demonstrate what a model is to you, right, from that perspective. So let's just say I'm talking to you now and you're the mortgage client, and I can guarantee I can sell you illness cover almost every time, and if not, then you know it's on you.
Go for it.
Okay, right. So, Mike, you're just taking out this mortgage to buy this house in Southampton. It's the biggest house on the hill. You're putting down 1.2 million. You're borrowing £300,000 in terms of a mortgage. The reason you're borrowing the mortgage is because you've not got that 300 grand spare. Have I got that right?
Correct, yes.
So that's an agreement, right, straight away. And the mortgage we're doing for you is with HSBC. It's over 23 years. So this is going to be paid off by the time you're 50. So you, your partner, and your family are going to have the home of your dreams, and that's the plan. Unless you start getting a load of cash and you can pay it off sooner. But it's 23 years. That's the mortgage term. Yeah?
Correct, yeah.
Right. So all of those things are agreements. And so the year we're in now is 2024. So we're planning between 2024, 2034, 2044, 2047. So a lot of things can happen in that time. Yeah?
Correct, yeah.
Right. And you need the full 300 grand because you ain't got 300 grand yourself. You need that full 300 grand. Now, on the mortgage statement, right, that we're going to do, it says on there, your home will be repossessed if you do not keep a mortgage or repayments on it, right? Now, do you think the Halifax mean that?
I would imagine if it's on a contract, they would
they
take
mean
it.
Right, right. So basically what they're saying is if you die, they want their money back. So if you lent somebody 300 grand and they died, you'd want your money back, they want their money back, right? So because they want their money back and you don't have it back, what most people do in this instance, they have some form of protection that pays off the mortgage, costs you a few pennies, but obviously if you die, they get their money back. That's part of the contract, right? Unless you want to be leaving your partner and your little kiddie with nowhere to live, that's what happens. Another thing that something you might not think about every day is in the event that you have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, something goes wrong with one of your major organs, you end up having a road accident and you end up in a wheelchair for the rest of your days. Alternatively, you're diagnosed with some horrible illness like, I don't know, MS or something like that. You still want to keep your house no matter what happens. Agree or disagree?
Agree, yeah.
Okay, then you need some form of illness cover. The number one reason why people lose their home between now and 2047 is not because you die, it's because you get sick. Yeah? Do you understand that? Right? So let's say your boss said to you, and let's assume you're in a normal job now, not that you are, but let's say, or you win a client and it's a £10 a week extra client. Are you rushing home to your partner and going, guess what? I've got an extra tenner a week in my contract. Or is it neither in or there?
It wouldn't make too much of a difference.
Okay, so if you was £10 a week worse off, somebody changed the contract, you probably wouldn't even notice it if it was £10 worse in the contract.
No. Nope.
Right. But if for that £10, let's say they said, if anything ever happens to you in the next 23 years, your mortgage paid off, would that be a good thing or a bad thing?
Definitely a good thing.
Right. So therefore, what we'll do is when we're sorting out your protection to pay the mortgage off if you die, we'll also make sure you got some cover in place so that in the event you get sick, that just disappears. Yeah, and even if you don't want to pay the mortgage off, you'll have 300 grand. You can go off to the States, get some best medical cover in the world and cover your mortgage payments for a while. Make sense?
Yes, makes a lot of sense.
So there what I'm doing, I'm asking you a question or a series of questions to which you readily agree, and then I ask a concluding question based on agreements to get a desirable response. This is a model. So you should always have an upsell model where you're talking your clients through a journey whereby it just makes sense for them to do more than the titchy little bit of business they thought doing in the first instance. Because people do things to reinforce decisions. When they're initially deciding to work with you, they say, I want to work with you. But then you can easily upsell them if you've got an upsell model. But you need to base that on Socrates, where you're asking a question or a series of questions and people just want to work with you.
As a side note, I love how most people, when talking about sales, will quote some, modern day hardcore American style salesman, and you're there quoting like Greek philosophers and stuff. I think that shows sort of how you get it really, which I love, and it's such a natural way of doing things. It certainly feels that way to me anyway, I guess. And part of that is probably your delivery, the fact you're so practiced in it, but. Do you find this is something that people have to really consciously learn it and then it becomes natural, or is it much more? Are you still actively thinking about all this as you're going through that process?
So what happens, and it's a really good question. So what happens is, how do you know when you teach somebody something they really know it?
I think probably I'm going to steal what I think your answer would be, but if they can teach it back to you, and they can explain it.
Yeah. So if they can teach it back, so what happens when somebody can teach it back? It goes into their self-image. This becomes me, mine, like me. So what you need to do is you teach the competencies. You teach somebody how to have a positive mental attitude. They teach it back. You teach them how to frame a message. They teach it back. You teach them about Socrates. And then when they start talking, the words come out in the right order. It just works. It just works so you don't think about it. It just becomes natural. And it's the only way that you can interact with somebody, because people will Google you. They'll ask ChatGPT or whatever else they want to do. And then they want to be able to have a conversation with a human. And you need to do one thing with them. You need to make them feel a certain way. And to do that, you need to have your subconscious mind trained so you can talk to them and go, I feel good about being around you, because it's always about feelings.
Amazing. I suppose it's that idea of the quote of people won't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. Yeah. And I guess there's a lot of that in sales as well, right?
Yeah. And like somebody, my son said to me yesterday, he said, I just spoke to a client, right, yesterday. He works in finance. He does business finance. And he said, and one of his family members just died. And he said, I didn't know what to say to him. And there's a book called Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg. I've just read it. It's a brilliant book if you've not read it. And a great question when somebody's died, right, is you say, what's your best memory with them? What's one of your favourite memories with them? And that just makes that person feel good, and they can talk to you about it. You say, what's your favourite memory? You might say, your mum just died, or your dad just died. They say, oh, Terry, I'm sorry for your loss. It's too rote. You say, what's your favourite memory with your mum? And you go, oh, God, da-da-da. And you're saying, how do you feel? And asking those questions, being human, is powerful. It's not all about the computer. So those things can be learned, and they can be taught, and they can be implemented. And just knowing how to do that makes a massive difference.
Well, I certainly find, and this may be more of a British thing as well, but I think sometimes we're afraid to ask questions in general, because we almost think we have to stick to a script. So it is like that, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss. And you are sorry to hear that, and you're sorry for their loss, but everyone is saying it to that person, and so it kind of just blends in. Whereas I found this, that certainly in having conversations with people, I was at a networking event a few months ago, and when you ask the generic boring questions of, oh, what do you do, how's your year been, who do you know here, you just get boring generic questions. Whereas when you ask stuff you actually want to ask, I remember having a conversation or two conversations with two different people on the same day. One extreme, it was just before the election happened. One absolutely loved Donald Trump, couldn't get enough of him. The other, staunch Democrat, loved Kamala Harris. And we had two really interesting conversations because we got beyond the surface level. And I wasn't afraid to ask different questions about that, as in, oh, why do you like that candidate? What don't you like about the other one? I might not have agreed with some of their answers, but it made for a much more natural, authentic conversation. And I've spoken to both those people a lot more after the event. And I guess it's the same with sales and business, right? It's a case of ask the things you actually want to know, and don't feel like, oh, if I ask that, they might think I'm being weird or being awkward, because that's just part of the discovery process.
But it's also part of, if you tell somebody something was disgusting, right? If you say oh my God, you never guess what I've seen today. I've seen this tortoise and it got run over by this tank in it, right? And I know it's terrible, but people will remember that. But if you tell something that's just vanilla, right, they're never going to remember it. So you need to ask those pointy questions, because you need to be remembered. Otherwise you'll be forgotten. Information just happens forget it. So you need to ask those questions. Say, it might not be something you think about every day, but in the event you have a heart attack, you're diagnosed with cancer, you have a stroke, something seriously goes wrong with your health, you still want to live somewhere to live, agree or disagree. You ask those pointy questions and they go, yeah, I agree. So when you've got decent questions to ask, and you can be real, right, and be real and really think about it. What happens if you do nothing, if you don't do anything with me? And it's well, I don't do anything, this is going to be a nightmare. Does it cause you a problem? What are the implications? And there's tools like future pacing questions and skill sets that you can be an amazing communicator and ask some really good questions. But the key thing is the other person has to really think, and it's to make them think. And too many times I think sales is taught by, maybe it's our American friends or whoever it is, but just by people that just think it's all about being a lot bigger, larger than life personality. And it's not, it's about being an intelligent, interested introvert that asks really good questions, that cares about the answers. And even if those questions are pointy, they dare to ask them, because then they become memorable.
Well, that's like, I don't like it when people use the phrase twisting the knife, because I think, yeah, you can do that, but actually asking more questions to get someone to reveal their pain point.
Yeah.
If you believe in what you're selling to them, you're doing your duty by asking those questions, because at the very least they work out what they actually want, what they actually need. Obviously, your hope is that you get a sale from it if you believe you can help them, but there's nothing wrong with asking questions, even if it makes someone feel slightly uncomfortable, because ultimately the outcome you can get them is going to remove that discomfort.
But, and like I'm with you. Like when I said positive mental attitude is the right mental attitude in any given set of circumstances, incorporating the plus traits of life, including faith, hope, and integrity. And integrity is having a set of standards you don't drop below, irrespective of consequence. You don't twist the knife in somebody's life, but if you genuinely believe you can help them, you ask them the pointy questions. You have to have integrity, and you have to treat that person with respect, because you'd want to be treated that way. Somebody once said to me, I remember bringing this guy over from Holland, and I met him on a flight, and amazing guy, and he was like an international negotiator for Shell. His name was Bernard Amos, right? And I asked him, I said, what's the toughest challenge you've ever had in your life? And he went, depression. And I said, describe it to me. And I'll never forget the way he described it. He said, depression is a deep pit dug with your own hands. And I was like, I was like, how did you get out? He said, medication, mate. He said, everyone thinks they wouldn't medication. And I was like, and it was startling. Anyway, I brought him over to my company, brought this guy over, and there was this little girl called Shelley who worked for us on reception. Never really paid enough attention to Shelley. And he made everybody stand up and say their favourite sayings. And Shelley said, never judge another person until you walk a mile in their shoes. And then he asked everybody to say what that meant to them. And like, so too many times we don't treat people with enough respect. And like, we're all in this together. Like, this is our life, and the people, like, we should love each other, because ultimately we're in this together. This is our life. And you don't want to be falling out with people. You want everybody to get on with you, because if you've got nothing but love surrounding you, then it's wonderful. So treat people with respect and have integrity. And if you can help them, then the world's a better place.
Yeah, I often refer to it as the grandma test, as in, how would I feel if someone was selling like that to my grandma?
Yeah.
And she's pretty amazing. She's 98 and a half, I think. Still lives
Amazing.
on her own.
Love
Still kind of keeps her plants in the greenhouse, still goes for a 2-mile walk every day. But she's had a few trips and falls, as you do when you get older. And it's like, she knows she needs to do a few strengthening exercises, but people of her generation, it's probably one of those things that they're not going to do. And so I think, well, actually, if there was someone there, and I would try and do this with her, but if there was someone there to her saying, look, Joyce, you need to do your strengthening exercises, and she says, oh, I don't particularly want to, I would want that person to say, well, what's going to happen if you don't do them? If you have another fall, you might not be able to get yourself back up. Or if you trip, if you do your exercises, you may be able to stop that trip and it won't be a full fall. Whereas if you don't do them, you could end up flat on the pavement, ambulance and hospital, even worse potentially. So it's like, getting someone to expose their problems is not unethical. It's nothing like that. It's like, again, would I want someone doing that with my grandma if they could help her? Absolutely.
But you know, and I know, right? If that was my grandma, I'd want Mike Samuels sat with my grandma, because I trust him. But we know the score. People know. And somebody that's got too much talking, and they're not an interested introvert, and you know that they've got the best interests. Like, your personal brand is massive. Yeah, it's massive. And so people know if it's real or not real. They know if you've got integrity or no integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears slightly, I'm sure we'll come back to sales stuff as well, but I wanted to talk to you about business, because, again, speaking before this, I said a lot of people watching are probably either in the corporate world and thinking about going freelance, starting a business, that kind of thing, or they're brand new copywriters. So this is a very open question. But what would you say are the key things people need to know before they start a business? And let's go that first, actually. We can expand on that from there.
So one of the biggest things is, in order to be successful in any endeavor, I used to work with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I was one of the certified leaders to teach it. You got to have a definite goal as to what you want to achieve first. And the second thing is, you got to go the extra mile. You have to do more. So it's not a case of, I'm thinking about doing it. You actually have to take the step and do something first. You've got to render more service and better service than you paid to render do it and do it and do it with a positive mental attitude. But you actually have to take the step first. And I'd encourage everybody to take that first step. And that's the first thing. So if you're thinking about hiring somebody, hire them. You don't have to go full out. You can do a side hustle, right? So if I'm in a corporate world and I'm thinking about doing this or that, do both. Just work harder and do more. You know, I was watching this program on China the other day, and it's like 996. Like, they work 9 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. at night, and they do it until 6 o'clock at night. And I just think sometimes you can work harder. You can work harder. Just raise your levels, raise your game. And it's like, okay, how do I raise my game? Well, just work harder. Just put more in. Just put more effort into it. You know, one of my friends I was talking to yesterday, a guy called John, he was telling me about, you know, his challenge he'd got. And he was telling me about a friend of his who's got stage 4 cancer. And he was like, oh, this is a real challenge. And I said to him, John, I said, if we had said, right, that by July, we've got to get this thing delivered. And if it does, your mate's cured. All of a sudden, this gets done. I said, but what you're not doing, you're not putting any pressure or focus or determination. It's like an idea. You're not going the extra mile. You're not working really, really hard. You're not doing everything that you can to the best of your ability. So the first thing, right, is you have to actually take the action, then decide. Too many times people are sat on the fence, right, and they're sat there and they're talking about it like, I should, I could, I would, I'd like to, this would be really nice. Forget it. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to be happy or successful while you're inert. The opposite of positive mental attitude is not a negative mental attitude, right? It's inertia. It's when you sit there inert waiting for it to happen. Your granny's never getting off the bus, right? You have to actually get on there and get her off the bus and go and help her. You've got to make it happen. And that, you know, losers let it happen, winners make it happen. You need to make it happen. And your time, I'm telling you now, it goes so quickly. So do the work. Get on and do it as a side hustle if you have to, but take the action that you have to take, because without taking that action, you've got no chance.
I think a lot of it is about deadlines as well, because I see people, they do all the courses, they read all the books, and they're doing stuff, they're implementing it, they're maybe reaching out for clients, they're pitching every now and again, but because there's no deadline to it, they feel like they have to do it indefinitely.
Yeah.
And when you think you have to do something indefinitely and you're not really seeing much progress, that makes it very demoralizing. It's like if you're on a diet and someone said to you, you're on this diet, and you go, okay, how long till? Well, just till whenever. All of a sudden, your motivation goes through the floor. So one thing I try and stress to people is have some sort of deadline. It might not be quit your corporate job in 3 months, but it might be, okay, within 3 months, I want to have a client or be making £1,500 a month, you know, X many $1,000s a month online. But I think having that is absolutely key for people. Is there anything else you'd say if someone is starting out, they've got that? Because I know this is maybe similar to your journey as well, starting your business. Is there anything that you found particularly helpful going from like the safe, so to speak, corporate salary and all that kind of stuff to branching out and doing your own thing?
Two things there. Like that last question, just park just for a minute, because there is, it's massive and it's big for the people. But the first thing you said about having a deadline is everything. So one of the biggest problems in business is they don't know what good looks like, right? So if you're going to gym, I want to get fit, right? And it's nominal. What does get fit mean? You haven't got a clue. But if you know what good looks like, if you're a mortgage advisor, what does done look like? I don't know. I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like you've got 400 customers. You're seeing 200 every year. You're probably doing remortgages for 130 of them every year. You're getting another 50 recommendations. You've got a recommendations engine in place. You're taking home at least 250 grand a year. This is how you do it. And you know what good looks like. When you know what that looks like, then it's easy because you've defined what the outcome is. You've got that definite goal. So that's the first thing. So having a definite goal and a deadline is everything. You say, well, if I do this and I'm making 5 grand a month and I'm doing it by this time, then I'll know I've done it and I'm going to put my effort and my things in to get to this. And then I'll learn, oh no, I can tick something off. That's massive. The second thing that's massive is learn sales, right? In any business, for any business to be successful, people say, what's the most important thing to be successful in sales? In business, sales. Because if you can't win new clients, right? If you don't know how to pitch, frame, negotiate, open, close, future pace, good and bad anchors, neuro-linguistic program, if you don't know those things, you're going in and your chances of being successful or getting the 500 quid client is going to be really hard. So learning sales, so like, I know, like, you know, we teach this stuff, but that's it. Because if you can win enough business, right, you'll get time to systemize, you'll get time to, you know, do the better website, you'll get time to do the better branding, you can employ some stuff, but you got to learn the skills as to how to open, close, frame, negotiate, learn those skills. And without that, forget it. Because otherwise it'll be too hard. The other thing is what you'll do is you'll give up easily because you don't know how to do it. You know, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to sell. So learning to sell is one of the most important things you'll ever learn. I'd say in business, it's the most important aspect, because if you're winning a load of business, you'll have time to do the other things. But without it, you've got no chance.
Well, I guess there's a lot of carryover to everything in life as well, because almost everything is sales anyway. It's having conversations. It's getting your kid to go to bed at a reasonable time is sales. You know, getting someone to marry you is sales. It's all that kind of stuff. So it's not just a skill you can use. And even if you're staying in the corporate world, negotiating a salary increase, getting your boss to let you work from home 2 days a week, all that kind of stuff, I'd imagine the principles are very, very similar.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So this is my take on it, right? See, if there's two ways of doing something, you can either do it your way, right, which you're 50-50 or it's right, or somebody else's way. Guess whose way you should do it?
My way?
Your way, right? And then if you get it wrong your time, and the next time, right, and it's still 50-50 whether you're right or wrong, who do you do it next time? Whose way do you do it next time?
Try the other person's.
No, forget it.
Still my way.
Your way again. And next time you're the way. And maybe when you get to the fourth go, you do that. Because you're living your life. Otherwise, you're singing somebody else's song. Do it your way. Do it your way. Do it your... But you have to fight for that. And you have to argue for it. Do it your way. Yeah. Because guess what? When it's wrong, you go, well, I know we ended up on the wrong island, but it was an adventure. We didn't quite get it right. But do it your way. Always do it your way first. And you've got to be persuasive and influential to get people to do it your way. So it's worth it. But then you're living the life. And when it comes in, you go... that's worth it.
I like that. In terms of going out to find new business then, so starting from scratch, it is this new, we'll say copywriting business for now, because majority of the audience are copywriters. Obviously, all the stuff about having that conversation is absolutely critical. But how do you go about opening up those conversations? How do you find prospects? How do you start building connections so you can have the more back and forth sales conversations with them?
So one of the first things is the principle of reciprocity, right? So you have to do people favors. You have to do some stuff for nothing, right? And then show your colors, show me you're any good. So if you can do something for nothing for somebody, or do more, you go the extra mile and you do more, people will pay you for it because they won't want to lose it. So if you're sure about what it is that you're good at, and you say, let me spend an hour, a couple of hours a day, couple of days, and you do that for 10 people, guess what? You'll learn. And also, you'll start winning business, and then you start winning business on your terms. And then the other thing is surround yourself by other people that are successful. So you'll know other people that have got successes, and if they're really successful, they've probably got too much business or stuff they don't want to do. So they'll give it to you. If you do a good job, you say, have you got something I could do for you? And just have a go, and you have a look at, could you get them to check your work? But you offer to do something for nothing, always in the first instance. And then if you do, then you can share. You know, so it's always that's the first thing. Do something for nothing, always.
The networking thing and being around people is huge. And massive. I think that I was probably very guilty of this at one stage. I think a lot of people are as well, where in the world we're in now, you can get out your phone, you've got access, and I'll say that in inverted commas, to thousands of people in your friends list you're following who you think you can connect with. You can send off cold email after cold email. And I still teach that stuff. But at the same time, I think if you said to me, you've got no budget to spend, you need to go and get 5 new clients by the end of next week, what would you do? I'd be out there talking to people. Totally. I'd go to networking events, I'd try and attend seminars, I'd stop by businesses, I would get people together. I was listening to someone recently who said that he started his business when he came to London by hosting a free dinner for entrepreneurs every month. And I think that kind of thing, people, where everyone is so accessible now online, people want to stay online, but actually, even if you've got an online business, get out into the real world and speak to other people.
Totally agree. And then the other thing is, often you don't have to travel. So I know you live in Southampton, right? So how many businesses are within 5 miles of where you are that would absolutely love to, and ultimately all you need is a little bit of a case study and another case study and another case study. And then you ask them, if you know how to get referrals, right? And you can learn these things, all these skills are eminently learnable. But you got to do something to win some business and go and speak to some people. And FaceTime is everything. Say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'd like to do, and I'll do it for you for nothing. If you talk to 5 people, somebody will say yes to you.
Yep. Definitely.
And you ask other people and you say, could you help me do this thing? I'm prepared to do it for nothing. I just want to get some runs on the board. And they go, yeah, okay.
I also think people are afraid to ask other people for referrals.
Yeah,
it's like whenever I have someone come to me and say, oh, I've lost a client, what should I do to get another one? It's like, have you asked your other clients who they can refer to you? Okay. Like, no, I haven't done that yet.
Let me give you the best referral system ever in the world that just works, right? So imagine you've done a job for a client, right? And the client says what when you've done a job for them? They love the work you've done. What do they say?
That's great.
No, what do? They normally say, thank you so much.
Right, yeah.
Thank you, right? Here's what you do. The first thing is you pie the thank you. You say, don't thank me. Don't thank you. You say, but here's what I expect you to do. If in a month's time you're really happy with what I've done, you're still as happy, and I'll ring you up for a review and say, is it okay? Is it still working? Is it still doing? Here's what I expect you to do. And the word is expect, right? Here's what I expect you to do. Recommend me. Here's what my best clients do. They recommend me. Friend, next door neighbor, brother, sister, people you work with, recommend me. Normally recommend me to a couple of people. And you say, and then you ask them, you say, fair enough, and they have to speak. You say, fair enough?
Absolutely.
And he's saying, if you don't, I'll just know you're just being nice to me. Here's what happened, right? I used to be a mortgage advisor in Northampton, and I'd get mortgages that people couldn't get mortgages. And they'd come in and they say, oh, I bought you a bottle of wine. And I hardly drink. Oh, I bought you a bottle of this. And I was like, and I used to have all these bottles of wine. I was like, I'm sick of this, right? They say, oh, Dave, thank you. And in the end, I thought, no, I'm sick of it. So I just pied the thank you. I said, no, don't thank me. I said, here's what I expect you to do. When I ring you up in a month, all your direct debits come out, your money's coming out, you're in your house, you're settled, you're whatever. I'll pop round, I'll make sure you got your policies. And I said, here's what I expect you to do. Whether it's your mum, dad, next door neighbour, brother, sister, friend down the road, somebody from work, right? Anybody that you know that possibly wants a mortgage, here's what I expect you to do. Recommend me, right? I say, and if you do that, I'll know you're really happy. If not, I need just been blowing smoke at my ass. I say, fair enough. And they'd say, yeah. Here's what I would do. I'd say, I'm coming to see you in a couple of days. I'll bring you policy docs. I'm just going to check in. Everything's okay. And I'd say, and obviously, it'd be really nice if you got a recommendation. Nearly always, they'd say, I've already recommended you, or I'll have somebody for you. If they hadn't, they'll say, I've spoken to these people here, and they'd get a recommendation, right? But that's not the best part of it, because we don't want people to be recommending us once, do we?
No.
Right. You want your clients to recommend you at least 2 or 3 times a year. And then all of a sudden your business doubles, trebles, quadruples. So what I do is I'd say, okay. And then they'd recommend me, say, my sister Sam needs a mortgage. And she said, and so you say, great, okay, great. So you go and see her sister Sam. You say, I've booked in to see Sam next Wednesday. And you tell them. You go and see Sam and you do a fact find for a mortgage. I've seen Sam's done a fact find. You submit the mortgage. It's gone to the Halifax. That's great. The mortgage comes out and it's all gone through. And you say, thank you so much. It's all gone through. I just wanted to tell you, Sam's really happy. I'm really happy. What's the next conversation that client has with you? You've had 4 conversations. I've got another one. Got another one for you. And you have to tell them after they've given you a recommendation. I'm seeing them. I'm meeting them. I've submitted it. It's come out. It's gone in. It's all gone through. Thanks so much. Got another one. You don't have to give them any money. What we want feedback and validation. So you ask them. You pie the thank you. You tell them what you expect. You arrange a review meeting, and then you just get recommendations. And then all of a sudden, you get what I get. Oh my God, I'm sick of everybody saying yes to me. My phone keeps ringing. People keep recommending me. I need to start a business. And that was how I started my business.
I think it's funny that I've tested asking for referrals and doing it more in that way versus asking for referrals and incentivizing them financially. Absolutely no difference. Provided you give people the feel-good factor,
totally.
People don't actually care about
getting. They don't care.
I used to do sort of,
not bothered about it.
10% of a project fee or £500 finder's fee. Yeah, no one actually cares.
They're not bothered.
Yeah.
They just want feedback.
Yeah.
And if you give them feedback, and then all of a sudden, and you'll get people that recommend you every 2 or 3 months. Like, another one for you, got another one for you, got another one for you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. And all you're doing is talking to people. You're getting out into the big wide world. Just wanted to say thank you. And if you surprise them every now and again, just wanted to give you that, just a little thank you. Not something that's... When you give somebody, right, and this fits with social psychology, right? When you give somebody a reward, right, that's the job done. You give me a recommendation, I'll give you this reward. Whereas if they've given you a couple of recommendations, you say, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Here's a bottle of wine, here's a bottle of champagne, here's a voucher for something. I just want to say thank you. And that's a gift, and it's meaningful, and it's unexpected, and it's something they want. A bunch of flowers for, for your partner or whatever. When that's a gift, that opens up the relationship. Rewards close down relationships. It's transactional. I give you this client, you give me a project fee, here's 10%, next, done.
Yep.
Give them gifts that are meaningful, that are unexpected, that are customized to them. Game change.
One of the best things I've done for my business is I will put on a free event once a year, and then I send out a free print newsletter once a year as well.
Brilliant.
I'm not saying I'm the best at it whatsoever, but it's difficult to track the ROI specifically from that because you can't put, a specific code on an event or anything like that. But I don't really sell at any of them. But I do think that that's kind of attributed
Forms a
to
relationship.
Yeah, it's, people come back a lot, and I think, I can't say for definite that that's the thing that does it, but I definitely think it helps.
But that what you're doing, I mean, like we want to come together. We come in tribes. That's what made us feel safe when we're in a tribe. You're part of a belonging. You're creating an identity, and you're doing something that's meaningful to those people. And that's real reciprocity. That's building a relationship, building a tribe. It's like, here, I'll come.
That segues on really nicely to what I want to talk about next, which is, let's say you've got that first client, whether it's copywriting business or anything else. Obviously, what we've just talked about with referrals and gifts and that kind of thing is a big part of it. But what's the next step to scaling? And I ask that because, again, a lot of people watching will probably be in that space where they're doing okay, they're making a consistent income, but it's very much, I write emails or I do projects and I have 3 retainer clients, 5 retainer clients, whatever it is. You've clearly built a very successful business. So what are the key next stages to going from single person business to something that maybe is ultimately sellable, or if not, at least something that's more of a, what I would refer to as a real company rather than dicking about on a laptop on the internet?
So the first thing is you need some leads. You need to, because otherwise you'll feel like you're constantly struggling. You need to be able to make sure that you feel like you've got some leads. But if you've got some leads, then you need to employ some people. And what I would say is the key characteristics: young, hungry, enthusiastic, prepared to work around the block. Right? Because if you feel like people are trying really hard and they're working really hard, then you'll give them a thing. Young is a mindset. So can you get people come and work for you that are young, enthusiastic, prepared to work around the clock? If you can, and with the right mindset, then you need to have some kind of a game that they're going to come in and play. The worst thing is when you employ people and you say, I'll tell you a story, right? We used to have this insurance business, and we had a couple of people working in the business, not many, right? And we employed this guy from the Halifax, really good looking guy. And I was trying to get him to come and work for us. And I said, do you come in and work? And so he came to work for us. And I said, sit down there and just copy Nigel. Nigel was our top sales guy, right? Got to tea break 10:30. I'm like, we'll call this guy Mark, right? I was like, where's Mark? I got a text message saying, Dave, if you think coming to work for you and sit next to Nigel, no training, no nothing, forget it. And he was gone. I was like, and I told like the staff who's coming, I was like, oh my God. So if you want somebody to come and play your game, make sure you've got some training for them to start. So teach them how to pitch, frame, negotiate, open, close. You've got to have some kind of training in place. So you're going to bring them into your game. So if you want somebody to come and play your game, make sure you've got the rules of the game as to what the game is and give them some training. It can be online training, it can be whatever kind of training, but you got to be able to teach them stuff so they feel like they're getting indoctrinated into your business. Ideally, if you're going to employ people, ideally take 3, right? And even if it's 3 part-timers, because you can have one that you're going to hate, you can have one that you can love, one that's in the middle. Yeah, one that you just get rid of would be a total waste of time, because it just will. The other thing is plan for when they're going to leave, because rarely will they stay forever, right? So McDonald's, I think, has a 300% turnover. So every 3 months, 4 months, their staff are leaving. You got to plan for when they're going to leave. So you have to put the systems and the processes in place. For me, for what it was worth, I remember when we started our first business, it was an estate agency. I employed a couple of guys, went out and bought them BMW cars. Sean and Hayden, next thing you know, 6 months down the road, we'd been selling loads of houses. Our customer service wasn't as good as it should have been. Sean and Hayden had left, and me and Kev were sat there looking at these 2 BMWs. We just hired and thought, what did we do? We hadn't worked out the game. So get the training right for your people. Ideally, hire the greenest people you can. So hire the greenest, but the hungry, enthusiastic, rather than trying to bring in the skilled experts, because if they left the last place, they're probably going to leave your place.
That's a big issue that I sometimes see when certainly people with a copywriting business go and hire. So they go from one person, like mini agencies, trying to build an agency.
Yeah.
And I think certainly in the online marketing space, most people are very ambitious. And so it can be quite difficult to get that person who's hardworking, but won't then after, say, 6 months, just up ship and go, actually, I can earn more money working for myself.
Yep.
So what would your best bit of advice be to either find someone who doesn't feel like that, but still works hard, or to keep that person on side?
to keep that person on side, you can do a thing called a bonus pot. This is a really good thing. So let's imagine, right, that let's say I'm paying you 10 grand a quarter in a bonus, right? I can give you all that bonus, or I could give you 7.5 grand of it as a bonus, right? And I could keep 2.5 grand of it in a bonus pot. So that means that by the end of the year, there's another 10 grand in the pot, right? And if I say you get 25% of your pot at the end of the year, you get 2.5 grand, you feel like you've got 7.5 grand that's invested. Next year, you do another 15 grand in your pot and you've got that in there, you're getting 6 grand out your pot. And I say, when you get to, you've been here 10 years, you can have all of your pots. So the longer people are with you, you keep a part of their bonus, you put it into a pot, and it's a retention pot. They can't leave. They will never leave. They're like, oh, I'm not leaving that. So you just say, when you've been here for a decade, you get your pot. Obviously, you got to make sure you don't spend that pot, but that's a way to retain people. The best way is hire them young and new and clean and train them up yourself. That's what I would do. And I say young's a mindset. Somebody could be 40 and young, someone could be old at 22. So, and then train them yourself, but then have a training package in place so you can train people all the way through.
Got it. And what would you look for? Because I've heard some people say that they look for someone who can do more of the admin type tasks. Other people say find someone who their strengths are your weaknesses. Is there anyone you would look for like that? Would you look for more of a partner versus employee?
If you want to grow your business in the first instance and it's just you, then you want somebody that can do the admin side of things. So you definitely want that. So I'd take, rather than hiring another person to do what I could do that I'm really good at, I'd hire somebody to do the stuff that I'm shit at. And I'd probably hire 2 or 3 of those and grow my business. So I'm still the face of it, but they're going to be doing the minion type jobs, like do all the gravel work. And then all of a sudden you don't have to do so much work. You got, like, let's say there's 10 things to do and you could give away 8 of them because they're just noddies, right? You give them away. So you take 2 or 3 people in to do that. And all of a sudden it's like, now all of a sudden you don't mind doing what you were doing. So I'll give you an example. In our last business, the one that I sold, it was a mortgage and insurance business. I used to have guys that would agree the deal, and that's all they would do. They just agree the deal. We'd have other people that do the applications, other people do the chasing, other people that follow everything through, right? And I could get my financial advisors. I had guys doing £800,000 and £900,000 a year, right? I've recently worked with the biggest financial services business in the country. Their top financial advisor is only banking 350,000 a year. So I'd mind doing 2.5 times the top in the biggest firm that's got 2,000 financial advisors. We had 30, right? And I had 2 guys that are banking 2 and 3 times what they would do by breaking the job down into small parts and then just getting them doing the bit they liked, and they loved it, and that's what made it successful.
Love it. And I guess culture plays a part as well, right? It's that, the kind of thing that, yes, you want to incentivize people, you want to pay them well, you want to do all of that kind of stuff. But if they enjoy coming to work, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I genuinely love 90% of it. And it would take a lot. All right, it's my own business, so it's a bit different, but it would take a lot for me to change what I do. Same thing, if you've got people who actually enjoy working for you, then it's huge.
And you got to have people who love what they do. But one of the big things is training them and holding them to account. So, like every single week, I would do scores on the doors. What did we want to do last week? What do we do this week? And then do some training. And that creates culture. And then we would always go away once a year, right? Always, like a little bit like what you're doing with your people, but you get people together so they can celebrate, because this is their life. It's our life. We want to come together. And ours would be Ibiza, Barcelona, Monte Carlo, like everything paid, people having way too much alcohol and fun and whatever, and probably sleeping with each other, but whatever. But that would just be their party time. But you don't mind that because they're working really hard. And then we used to do another thing called a duvet day. So if you weren't sick in a quarter, you got a day where you could just be in bed, right? So you give them an extra week's holiday for not taking sick notes. But you make it fun to make people want to play and work in your organisation. And all of a sudden, it's like, this is good. I'm learning, I'm earning, I've got retention that's keeping me in here, and I'm going away and I'm having a holiday and I'm having fun and I get a time off work if I'm not taking the piss. All of a sudden, it's a game worth playing, but you've got to make your game a game worth playing.
Perfect. So we'll wrap up in a minute. I'll get you to share where people can find out more about you. But if you're okay with it, I want to put you to task with a new feature, which is some quick fire questions. So
let's do
not
it.
memorized as of yet, but let's run through these and have a bit of fun.
Okay.
So it's very unprofessional, me having to get a phone out
It's good. It's
in a
good.
podcast. So question number 1, if you could gift one business, marketing, copywriting or mindset book to someone starting their journey, what book would it be?
The E-Myth Revisited.
Like it. We're going for a coffee and I'm buying. What's your order?
Cup of tea.
Nice. You're in charge of the internet and you can get rid of one social media platform forever. Which one is it and why?
Oh, God, there's only one. Probably Facebook.
Like it. Any reason why for that one?
Just because it's everybody's there, and so you almost feel like you need to be part of it, and you don't need to be part of it, but you do.
Which 3 people, living or dead, would you invite to your ideal dinner party?
Probably Mahatma Gandhi, because he did something amazing in India. You'd have to have a singer there, and I don't know. I love Frank Sinatra, but I think I'd still have probably Michael Jackson, because I think he was amazing. And you'd want somebody that was funny, probably alive today, probably Stephen Fry, because he's really clever and entertaining. So yeah, that'd be my 3.
Like it. I'd ask for a ticket to that dinner party. That'd be quite good fun. And finally, is Die Hard a Christmas film?
Oh God, Die Hard. I mean, I feel for Bruce Willis because of what he's going through at the minute with dementia, but it's done. It's had its day. No, not for me.
Fair enough. That's the key question out of everything we've discussed today. So always good to know if people stand on the Die Hard as a Christmas movie. So yeah, amazing. Love that, Dave. Loads of great stuff there. So yeah, I want to thank you for your time. And if people want to connect with you, where should they go? And yeah, feel free to tell people where they should reach out and what they should look into.
Yeah, so my business is called Suada.com, SUADA.com, the Goddess of Persuasion. If you want to learn anything about sales, we've got some amazing courses. I used to work with the world's leading social psychologist, Robert Cialdini, so you can learn about influence and persuasion there. It's david@suada.com. Reach out. Happy to help, happy to get involved. And obviously, you can learn some stuff from me for free. Just reach out.
Amazing. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I'll put all those links down below. As you've seen, Dave's a huge wealth of knowledge on all things sales, business, marketing. So yeah, definitely check out the stuff he has advised today. Links down below. As always, if you would like to like the video, subscribe, share it, that is always appreciated. And I shall catch you on the next episode.